stand here to do opening ritual. So I'll ask you to give a welcome to someone who's special and dear to us, Sister Kefa Nefertiti of First World Alliance.
Okay, sisters and brothers. In praise of African goddesses, in tradition of our ancestors, and in celebration of our history, we of the African Echoes invite you to join us in our opening ritual. To honor our elders, for those Africans 60 years or older, please stand. Our children, those amongst us and those who left us, with the youngest African child in the house, please stand or be held up. To honor African life, with those sisters who are carrying a child in that sacred womb, please stand. Joining us for the first time. Would you please stand? Let me welcome you into our hour.
Thank you very much, Sister Kefa. That was different, wasn't it? Yeah. A lot different to the way we do it here, don't we? For those of you who don't know who Sister Kefa is our mother. She comes from the First World Alliance, and it is through her strength and her understanding and kindness that we are here today. We went to the First World Alliance quite a few years ago now to hear, of course, Dr. Ben, and it was Sister Kefa who welcomed us. And since then, it's been this type of a relationship. So this is who Sister Kefa is, and Sister Kefa, really appreciate this. It's a little different this afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay, next week at the First World Alliance, there will be a lecture on the spirituality of Marcus Messiah Garvey's African thought by Brother Tony Martin. As you know, Tony Martin has been in the wastelands of Wesley College there under attack, and in fact he invited Dr. Ben up there in 94, was it 94, Dr. Ben? 93, and that's when the excitement started. A woman by the name of the left codes chose to attack Dr. Ben, and that attack is still ongoing as of today. So that's who this brother is. The lecture will be at the St. James Presbyterian Church, which is located at the corner of 141st Street and St. Nicholas Avenue in New York City. For information, you can call Sister Kefa at the area code 212-368-7353. Next week here, we'll be having the other half of the eldership. We'll be having Dr. Clark, and he will be dealing with one of his favorite concerns, can African people save themselves, in which he'll be dealing with an agenda for Africa in the 21st century. So you're invited back. If you hear Dr. Ben, you have to hear Dr. Clark. If you hear Dr. Clark, you have to hear Dr. Ben. So I expect not only you who are here today, but I expect you to bring someone else, because after you hear Dr. Ben today, I know you will bring someone else. Earl Run. Let's welcome one of the hardest working men on this side of the street, our brother Earl. Come on.
Hope that group brothers and sisters. Before I go a little further, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, because this is kind of like a quick notice on ourselves, and I put it inside the survey. I hope everybody here got one of these in the mail. if you do, you know, can you please fill it out and send it back?
Still, a lot of things that a lot of people wouldn't know. This was in the 1930s. Dr. Ben was fighting against the United States troops in Puerto Rico. Now we hear people promoting themselves, telling you how much good things they've done. Has any of them ever stood up against the forces of the United States government? I didn't hear an answer. I didn't hear your answer. Have you ever stood up against the Marines? The United States Marines. I can't hear you. Okay, this is what Dr. Ben has done. Later on, he went to school in Havana, Cuba. That's where I think he got his first degree. And he'll clear up my facts when he gets here. Then he left and he went to Spain. Now, I mentioned Havana, Cuba for one special reason. Last week, you know what happened. And the one thing I want to say about that is history is our only salvation next to revolution. In November 1976, a Cuban commercial airline left Barbados with approximately 70 passengers in it. Included in that passenger list was 14 Guyanese stewards. Within 10 minutes of that plane being in the air, it was blown out of the sky and everybody died, 70 plus people. Now, the majority of people on that plane were Cubans, but they were not ordinary Cubans. If you remember, 1976 was a different year. Anybody remember what happened in 1976 of note? Test. Go ahead, what happened? No. Well, all that happened, but there's something special. I can't hear you. The Olympics. Remember Sugar Ray Leonard? 76. And the Cubans had a gymnastics team. And that gymnastics team was a sister. You remember seeing a sister for the first time doing gymnastics? Yes. You remember that? And they were put out the word that African women can't do gymnastics because any number of reasons. And the Cuban sister was right up there. You remember that? They refused to give her a 10. That was the same year with Nadia Kumomich, or whatever her name was. You remember that? There was a Cuban sister, the first African woman to compete in gymnastics. You remember that? Yeah. Okay. The Cuban team overall did so well that Cuba sent them on a goodwill tour of Central, South America, and the Caribbean. And that was the team that was blown out of the sky. Every one of them died. A couple of weeks later, they caught the murderer in Venezuela, a man by the name of Bosch. He was charged, imprisoned, and nothing was ever heard of him until there was a news report somewhere that he escaped from prison. Anybody know where that murderer is today? He is in Miami. He is in Miami, Florida. That man blew up a plane with 70 people in it. And the United States government is protecting him. Okay, that's how important history is. And I say that only to say that when you see a Dr. Ben comes here and he stands up, he would not promote himself. He wouldn't do it. But he has one weapon that he uses, and that's history. That's why history is important to us. And this is what he's been doing for most of his life. He's been going to Egypt since 1939. He's written over 30 books. His first book was written in 1939, We the Black Jews. It was written in Spanish. He rewrote that book, translated it rather, and added a volume to it. We the Black Jews, Witness to the White Jewish Race Myth, in 1986. Now, the one thing I dare those people who chose themselves to call Dr. Ben, and you notice, they never messed with him. You notice they never messed with him? They messed with everybody else. They never messed with him. Because how was he brought up? How was he brought up? He was brought up, quote, Jewish. Dr. Ben, that's right. So he knows the game. You can't look at him and call him anti-Semitic, can you? Insanity has its limits. Okay? And they won't mess with him. Of course, Lefkowitz know the game. That's why she messed with him. And of course, I know he objected strenuously. Can't wait to get a whipping on it, right? So, I'm just telling you these things about Dr. Ben because a lot of people get out there and promote themselves without making a contribution. Dr. Ben's life is the contribution. Dr. Ben, I ask Dr. Ben one question all the time I see him. How do you do it? Dr. Ben has logged more miles in 1 year than all of us in this room would log for a lifetime. And you want me to prove that to you? In 1991, when he promoted the first Aswan festival, this man went to almost every part of the world where African people lived. He went to Australia, he went to New Zealand, he went to various islands within the Pacific Ocean, he went to visit all alone. How he does it, keep asking, how do you do it? But he does it. And I have taken this time to give you some insights into who Dr. Ben really is. And he does this without asking for anything. For years, Dr. Ben was the only African in Egypt doing archaeological digs. Can you imagine not one African government saw the need to do archaeological digs in Egypt? Not one. But of course, the Japanese were swarming all over the place. The Japanese. Dr. Ben was the only one. Because of his sense of what is there. So with this as a background, when I say that Dr. Ben is my God, people go crazy. How can you worship a man like yourself? Very easily, because I know what he has done. I know his capabilities, and I'm not ashamed. So with that as a background, I ask you to welcome my God, Gary.
Good afternoon. I know that you probably expected me to say the favorite word, Hotep. I don't say it because I have more people to give recognition to than Hotep, and I would prefer to say good afternoon, women. The subject matter is rather important, and I think it's the most important subject that I ever could speak on, and that would be the African mother. I say that because for the African there would be no one if it were not for the African mother. That brings the question among African men particularly, how could the African mother be such without the African father? If you're a Christian, you wouldn't ask the question because you presume it in terms of Mary, and she was supposed to have been pregnant without a man. So if you can be a Christian, then you understand the proposition and you have lived it, at least you pretend to, by stating that the question of Mary and the question of Christianity is correct. I do not mean it in that context. I said that the African mother is the first human to have had a child, whether she get it from the father. Because since fathers don't have children, not that I know of, and I don't think any one of you presumptuous enough to say that you know a man who gave birth to a child. And that's even if you assume there was a person called Adam, and if Adam gave birth to a child, his rectum must have been seriously damaged. And I don't think that you're willing to produce a seriously damaged rectum for anybody to see or deal with it historically. So considering those facts, I think you will agree that the first person to give birth to a child has been a woman, whether or not it's been the Immaculate Conception, and I take issue with that unless you're willing to say faith, not fact. And faith could be misunderstood for fact. I think that the issue that we are having is the conception of words, the meaning of words. We believe in a lot of things that we dare not try to show anyone. And I think when we're talking about religion and in the house of religions, I know I wouldn't say anything that would be contemptuous, but I would say things that may be not acceptable. So this afternoon we are talking about the real mother, the real goddess, the real deity above all other deities. And we speak of it in our commitment, whether it be Friday night as a Muslim, Saturday night as a Jew, a Hebrew rather, and Sunday as a Christian. And in either case, in all three of these religions who have denied the birth of themselves, in all three of these religions you find the one in charge is primarily the African man. And in all three of these religions, the one who gives birth to that African man is an African woman. Thus, I've taken the position that for me, I remember now in this particular case, I'm speaking for myself. For me, the deity is a woman whom I met. I met the woman who gave birth to me. I met her, I'm sure, the first day of birth, but I can't recall that. I can recall, however, at a very early age, having met this woman, that my consciousness, remember, feeding me, and feeding me through the matter of her breasts. She had two of them, and she was using the left breast, and I was lying comfortable back by her, keeping me in the position and nursing me. I never had the misfortune of using Similac or any of those attributes. I used the milk of my mother, and my mother never gave me milk once that you bought in the can or anything like that, because she said if she intended to give me cow milk, she would have made sure that I was born from a cow. But I was born from a woman, therefore I should have woman's milk. And since women don't have cow milk, then she fed me woman's milk. I've not been unfortunate like you that feel you have to have milk, and so you would go out and buy cow milk. When I need milk, I get me a woman and I nurse her. I don't go and get a cow, because I don't think you see anything in the matter of a cow on me. We don't relate together. So you may be mad with me for going and getting woman's milk, but I think that was the best. Some of you may think that it's even abominable to speak about woman's milk. That is because you have never had woman milk. You're born from a cow, so you went and got cow milk. I born from a woman, so I got woman milk when I want milk. All right, so since we understand each other, first we have to make it clear. If you know any man who have given birth to a woman or a man or a child, then you can stop my discussion, because I would not be telling the truth. I maintain that women give birth to every man on earth. And if someone knows somebody other than a man on earth, a man elsewhere, please state it now. There will be no need for me to speak. I will continue, since I don't think that is anyone that crazy to get up and say that they know of anything other than the woman who have given birth to man on earth. Since we don't know of man anywhere else, then my position would be rational. You see, most of us have not had much of reading with respect to women other than in our slavery, in our colonialism, I should say, and which continues. We're the best dressed up slaves I've ever seen. All of us consider ourselves not slaves, and we will argue the point. Then I said, since we're not slaves, let's act like it. And I don't think that you're willing to act like it, because you can't act like it, or the United States will show you by virtue of pulling out our armed forces. And I don't think that most of us, I wouldn't say all of us, most of us, I don't think would be ready for physical combat against the United States. We don't even plan it. We don't even think of it. It is a remote a concept in our mind that we will have to ever one day stand up against the United States. You ask, why don't we ever challenge the system other than talking it? Because we're not ready for it. And that's why I listen to many statements, and I listen and listen again and continue to listen, because nothing is going to happen. As I said, I don't go to marches. I don't go to marches in front of embassies. I don't go to marches any of those places, because when I go to a march of that nature, I don't expect returning to my home. I don't expect anything, because if I ever find myself there, I find myself with the equipment to get me to where I expect to go to the end. So I don't attend. And then many of my friends don't understand why, but I guess I explain it enough in my meetings with them. They just not paying any attention to me and figure, well, he's joking. And so the question of the female of the goddess, you will notice that the men who write these things down and who have written them in the past and control writing them now and will seem to be doing it in the future, establish in what is called the sacred and most holy documents that which he controls. The attitude that went through this whole thing is the one that I constantly question certain, or I say most women, is how can they agree and stand it for all these years? I want to know, how can a woman accept that a man gave birth to the first child, and that there was a man named Adam who gave birth to Eve by virtue of his rib cage? If the man had given birth to Eve through his penis, there would have been some logic to it, and which I might not have contended. But through his rib cage, and there's no damage to his ribs. Or I tried to reason physically, how could the child have come out, let's say a 3-pounder, I go as the chance of survival, and the woman still stay and go to church, go to synagogue, go to the mosque every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and never question the possibility? What is it within the gospel or any religious tract that tells her that this thing happened to the point that she can respect it? With all the women revolutionary movement going on today, challenging things that men wrote, why doesn't the woman challenge the Adam and Eve statement? I could give you a possibility of why not, and it's all based upon fear. Fear of being hurt one way or the other. It can't be hurt by pain, because if she's a mother, she knows what pain is. And I don't know more excruciating pain than childbirth other than death. It's a process that will lead to death, and death has come quite often. Then what it is? Conditioning of the mind. It's got to be conditioning of the mind, like today, to sit there and admit that you, a mother, the only one could be a mother in the human race, because there's only one human race. We have make all kinds of aberration to justify all kinds of schemes. But whether you're white, black, brown, technicolor, and even green that you had, you are a member of the human race. And you may vary by being a member of a group within the human race, an ethnic group. But nevertheless, you're still of the human race. And if you mate with any other race, you're going to get nothing or maybe a kick. If you're raised with a donkey, a female donkey, of course, Jenny, you may get your brain kicked out. And that's all you're going to get. But if you rape with a woman as white, green, technicolor, you may get an offspring. These are realities. The ethnicity and so forth has been based upon the Europeans telling us in some school and get mad, and we must answer to sort of in the brainwashing. First he brainwashed himself. But in the process, I would recognize the ethnicity of people of being germane, because since I can't go outside and create a system that will recognize the ethnicity as being just that, it becomes another race in the system in which I live. And I'm forced to follow this, and I'm not young as I used to be in my teen to challenge the United States against with military forces, because I understand that when you say with your group in consultation, we are going to do this, so many within that group may say yes and not ready to do it. And that among the people within the group may cause the group itself to be damaged beyond capacity to repair their mind from past experience. So when we're talking about God, I think, and the goddess, and since in Egypt there is no God without a goddess and no goddess without a god, all of them have the opposite. But the argument continues up to now as to who was the first, like the chicken and the egg situation. And I've never seen an egg lay a chicken. I've always seen a chicken lay an egg, so I know who come first. Now, you may not agree with it. Go on with your argument. I don't have time to waste. Thus, it is the rationale for my conclusion is based upon human living and experience. I know that is not too popular among the young, and I don't know who's young, because I'm younger than the man 77. I'm 76. So I could say I'm the young, and he's the old, because it would be a fact. Then somebody would just say, I'm younger than you too. I'm 72, and so on and so on. But what we need within the system we're living in is the recognition of reality. And we cannot have this reality unless the men among us are willing to deal with a truth of reality. We see constantly, even though we come forward as fathers and we brag to each other as such, we must accept, however, that as fathers we have not given birth to anything. As fathers, we are not that unless a woman tells us we are the father. And she can say to us, you are the father, and take it away by saying you're not the father. Just add not with are. And that if you get 6 or 7 marriage license, she wakes up in the bed in the morning and says, I'm pregnant. You can't say, good, you gave my child. She didn't tell you that. She said she was pregnant. She must add some other words for you to know you are a father. Because she can take them back in any minute, and the law will back her. He is my husband, he's not the father of my child. She could say that up to the day she gives birth to the child, and 30 years after, 70 years after, you're not the father of my child. What are you going to do about it? Insist that you're the father? People look like a damn fool. The one say you're not the father of the child. That's why I keep him with my wife. I always keep my wife and say, darling, I'm still the father of the child. My wife would tell me, does the child look like you, don't it? And I always say, it looked like, but I got to get the approval from you. Because the Iceman down the block looks like me, very close. You could always find somebody look like you. And you can't prove it's your child, but she can prove it is her child because she gave birth to the child. So that make this manhood that we're talking about very weak. So if we have any reasoning about it, we will do what's right. Constantly ask her to validate whether or not you are the father, and she will say yes or no. When she said no, just travel. Take up everything and travel, because you have no fatherhood. And that is true throughout our life, but with our ego as men, we will insist that we are. I always insist I am because I check with her before I make the statement and get recertified by her. Thus, she is the goddess. She controls everything I do, and I constantly go to her to back check and find out if she is still saying, I am the father. That's the only time I said, I am the father. And then look to her to see if she's going to revalidate this situation. Now, I know some of you will not do that, and then you are always up to the chance of being told you are not the father. Then the frustration comes, you want to kill her, you want to do all kinds of things because you didn't ask her before you make the statement. You're going to assume that you're a big man. I'm no big man. I'm a little boy when it comes and asking her to validate this, because the fact is, she is the mother, and there's all kind of proof, including herself, but you are not the father in the same manner. You can only be the father when she validated and constantly re-evaluated. So the woman is the deity. She's the only one who can state emphatically she is the mother of the child, therefore the deity. If we look at it, there were times when the ancient people along the Nile validated that there was such a thing as sperm and different things like that. They did it because they were able to perform autopsy. It was not until the 19th century that the European could validate his fatherhood, or that there was a fatherhood, because it's only then that he knew what a sperm was, or sperms. It is only then that he knew there was something called sperms that commingled with something called ovum, which produced an offspring. However, he couldn't find an offspring other than in the woman. It's in the female. These are giving you all the logical explanation for the deity. It's only in the female does this situation happen, that the sperm comes down from the scrotum. That's what you would call that connected to the male, between his legs, behind the penis, connected to the top of the penis. That is the scrotum, and it is there that the sperm is manufactured, it's made. It then is released down through the shank, goes into the one fallopian, the tube, and then in there, the intersection is made with the woman's ovum. The fertilization of that, for the first time, starts what is called a baby, an infant. And we could go down to the sperm meeting with the ovum, cause that element of humanity. In the woman, not in the man. A child does not come out of the man. Sperm comes out and meets the ovum in the woman. It is only when these two things contact each other that a baby is created. The element of a baby is created in the woman, again in the woman. Therefore, she is goddess. She is God. She's everything dealing with the human being. Now, we have been taught to be jealous about this. And we created a book called the Bible, the Quran, the New Testament, and you call it whatever you want. It's still the same damn thing. You could say anything you want. Quran, Bible, and all them don't mean a damn thing without the woman being at the top. Fear, jealousy, all kinds of these things come in our mind as men because we've been taught that. And we've taught to suppress the woman. We've been taught to show her that we got power, and some of us even get killed showing her by slapping her, kicking her, beating her up, and then here comes the butcher knife in our chest. Shock kills us. We die before we die. The shock blow our brains out, and we can't take it. The shock blow our brains out, and we're dead before we hit the ground. Yet, the question is, how do we change this? If, in fact, it is to the opposite, how do we present the evidence to show the contrary? There is no evidence to show. Unless you know, please speak up. I will give you the time to come here and explain it. And if it isn't any other way, how do we change to give the recognition and have a different life? I think that in religion, this is the problem. In religion, the problem is we say we believe, and that means the truth. A belief means we hope to have this be what we care for it to be. We believe we would have it no other way. But the reality doesn't deal with our belief. Belief is a thing that one day I hope. I know I'm not going to see reality. I'm going to see belief. I have acted most of the times on belief. And when I acted on belief, I was accepted. But when I acted on knowledge, the fact, truth, light, I've had to fight constantly because brothers aren't willing to deal with right. Brothers can't deal with right because it takes away from him a position that they've always held, and it would take away the justification for beating a woman. So it is easy for brothers, when a woman tells them, I am pregnant for you, it is easy for him to even whip her. And that's a mild term, to beat her. To crucify her with a stick, iron pipe, anything. He would beat her in that position. She could be 9 months pregnant. As a matter of fact, he would beat the baby out. And then the other brother said, yes, brother, they're too damn fresh. You had the right to do it because your manhood was threatened. But it was threatened when he was his mama. His manhood was threatened long before that. His manhood was threatened when he was a lay dot. Not being able to see by the human eye. His manhood was threatened. All she had to do was flush his ass down the toilet bowl. You see, we never give it a thought because most of us don't even have an idea of the relationship of a baby, the father and the mother. Most of us don't have any idea of how the sperm is transferred to the vagina and goes in its sacred place, the womb. We have no idea. Most of the mothers can't tell you or can't trace the reproductive organ, much less the fathers. I met many young girls in their 7th, their 4th, their whatnot month, and they don't know how the baby got in there. How it came about, how the sperm came in there, but they had all kind of sexual contact. Had no idea how she got pregnant, how it happened. She knows a penis met a vagina, and that's it. She knows she had some fun. And she's going to have a child. She's going to be a mother, but have no idea of how she's going to be a mother. She don't know how to get a mother, therefore how could she know how to, she is as a deity. And she can't deal with it because the church, the synagogue, the mosque have told her quite differently to make the man telling the story be the one that passed the child. And the story is, I pass a child and the woman have the child. So the woman become the container to deliver the birth and had nothing to do with it when she is in fact the one who is going to give the birth. The one who's going, in her, the baby is going to be made. She's going to deliver the baby because without her, there is no baby. It's a different thing. Do we then change to the truth? And when we change to the truth, does it now make the woman act as the man is acting now? And that's the riddle that society is afraid of. Society knows how it's acted all this time. And should it correct it, isn't going to reverse. Because are we in society ready to teach the truth? I don't think we're ready to teach the truth. It doesn't justify, excuse me, justify the behavior in which we're doing right now. So what do? We do what we are supposed to do in many other things which we can't do. Then do we stay in the position that we are? I should say not, theoretically. Although I recognize my wife, and if I pray, I'm going to pray to my wife. I know that sounds difficult to many of you. Yet you can go home and eat what your wife cooked. You can go home and take her treatment when you're sick. You can go home and she could do 101 million things for you, which you won't go and do for yourself. And then you could pray to a hole in the wall. You could pray to a belief in the sky, wind, and you can't pray to her. She got your child nursing and doing whatever, but you can't do that. But you could go and talk to Mary, who has been dead and gone umpteen years ago, and you can't tell it to your wife, who you've been laying with every night, every day. And then say, he sounds weird for the truth. But it doesn't sound weird to lie, because we're all lying. He's right in step with the truth, because the truth is a big lie that all of us telling. And when we get up and tell each other, Holy Mary, Mother of God, we can stop there. Mary is the Mother of God. Did I say Holy John, Mother of God? Did I say Holy Joseph, Mother of God? I said Holy Mary, Mother of God. Mother call Jesus Christ. And then we say that woman can't preach in church. She could be the mother of God, but she can't preach in her son's church. It's rough. We got a lot of changing to do. And I don't lie to me because you know you are not ready to change that. I'm just telling you about it. Women ain't ready, much less men, to change it back to the truth. Because women are afraid of what men are going to do. If we come home and say, you come home and say, look, you are preaching something wrong, I want to change. You get an ass whipping. And I don't want to get killed. But God wants you to be ready for when you got to start changing things, and which is now, which is yesterday. Because if you don't change it now, you're going to have to change it sometime, or your child going to have to change it sometime. Because the world isn't standing still. And all those ancient things that we thought are changing. That's why when young people tell me, but I'm young, I said, I'm in the same world with you. Though you're young, I am here in this world with you. And I'm not sleeping. Sometimes I do sleep, but I'm not sleeping now. I'm speaking to you, and I know the fact that you know, and therefore we're in the same world. Don't tell me the damn nonsense but different generation. I am here. When I die, then tell me about different generation. And these are the things that the concept of the deity and woman as the deity we have to go through this. Thank you. We have to go through this. And we have to go through the questioning, and it's going to be a very serious thing for you to go and tell your girlfriend, your mother, your other female, these are these things. And let us deal with them to right the wrongs, to right the world. And it's going to be difficult to even tell your best friend, your twin sister, or your mother. Because your mother going to first out of shock. What? You can't be talking because Eve. And you say, what about Eve? Eve, we got to correct too. But she says, Adam gave birth to Eve. You say, how, Mama, how? Well, how, Mother, how? And Mother may not even know how she got pregnant. Now she can tell you how Eve could not be born from Adam when she doesn't know how pregnancy comes. It's sad, isn't it? When we have millions of young women getting pregnant each day and they cannot trace the reproductive organs. Know nothing about it. So it means that we have to have an educational process that includes this, that with our politics, there must be education that deals with our socialization. We should have it in our sororities as well as our fraternities. Birth, just the subject of birth. How does birth come along? And you'll be surprised how many of us have no concept at all of childbirth. And we are the fathers of 15 kids, 10 kids. I can't tell you how number 1 came about. Because if we could, there'd be less violence in the family. Less women will beat, well, less men will beat women, especially when they're pregnant. There'll be a traumatic change with our relationship. Then women can feel safe to take a ride with any man driving down the street, 3 foot of snow, snow all over the place, can't get, and the man start the car, you will get in. Because then you would not be afraid of your brother. As it stands now, you will get in a car driven by a lion, an African lion, and take a chance that that lion has eaten and don't want to eat you up. Then get into the car with a brother who has eaten already, but you know, as you get in and sit down, the first question, what kind of drawers you got on? That's the way it goes. Because we have been socialized that we don't say, oh, look at that goddess. Coming in, goddess, have a seat. Where do you go? To my home, drop you off. What can I do for you? Tell your husband, when he sees a goddess, my goddess, give her a ride to the house. Right. Like I've given you a ride. That would be the good, because you aren't held up. You aren't abused. You got driven home. But it'd be hard for the company, because the automobile companies would not be able to sell as many cars. Because people, many women are no scared anymore, they could get a ride home. See, they will cut down the trade. So it will be too bad, and men can't afford that to happen. It will be too comfortable. They wouldn't be able to have enough jails. And you know what I mean? What's going to happen if we don't have those jails anymore? There's such a calamity that's going to come from us giving recognition to our sister. I'm no sister to her. Then they find out that we have to reevaluate relationships in the family. So when I say, that is my sister over there, you said, but don't she have a child for you? I said, yes, she said so, and I accepted it. And how she's your sister? I said, she's my sister. Oh, wait, man, wait. How could she be a sister of yours and have a child for you? I said, because I have a child with my sister. Man, something got to be wrong with you, brother. You have a child with your sister, then you rape her. I said, no. She voluntarily had sex with me, and we had a child. But how is she their sister? I said, brother, she is my sister. All men go with their sister. The relationship I'm speaking about is not the same in the context you're using it. You're talking about the relationship of man and woman sexually as against we are sisters biologically. Sister and brother biologically. And there comes the problem. We have established words. We've given meanings to them, and we decide that that meaning can never have duality purpose. It must be only one word way. So unless we can come to the fact of recognizing that the woman who is my wife is equally my sister, if we could see the biological relationship equally and above sometimes the sociological relationship, then we would understand that even my wife is my sister. If I could see that my wife is a woman, my sister, a woman, then I could understand treating her differently with respect. Because I'm not going to beat up my sister, not normally. Then we'll beat up my wife. But I wouldn't beat her up if she's sociologically and biologically my sister. That's a little thing I guess we got to... What I'm saying in general, that not only is she my goddess, and she does, what we are afraid of is that she will have something over me personally. But my goddess could be, when my goddess stayed there with my child in her hand, she has certified to me I am the father of that child. It doesn't change her status as my goddess. But she may not be the goddess that gave birth to me, but she's still my goddess. And if she gave birth to me, she's still my goddess. What I'm trying to say to you, why can't we refer to the woman as the goddess? Why it has to be something we don't see, something we can't prove, but have adopted because we met people saying it and can't justify it. I know it's going to be difficult to you to make that step, if you're even going to make this step. Because the ego that we have built up from others who have given it no thought is hard to put down. We've developed a prejudice against our sisters, our women. And we've been comfortable with it. We've built a whole world with it. But we know each day that there's a disadvantage to the sister, the woman, the wife, the girlfriend, whatever name you want to use to it. But don't we lose a lot by not dealing with what's a fact? And the fact is the greatest truth there is. A fact is a reality that happens and you can't change it. So then let's adopt the truth to validate the fact, to express the fact one to the other. I know this is going to be difficult, but the difficult I love. The easy thing I don't love. It doesn't stimulate me, doesn't do anything to me. I fall asleep. Like something to keep me awake and action. Speaking of, and I'm going to close for the question and answer period. My wife is right now physical in Chicago, I think. That's where she's supposed to be. She's there with my daughter and my son-in-law. Their son-in-law had a heart attack and he's got over it, and now my daughter's been operated and she's going to be the nurse. Again, she's the goddess. To feel this, my daughter called on the phone and she said, 2 weeks' time, you're going to be up here to take care of me. I heard the same phone. I was in the extension. My daughter told me to go on the extension. My wife immediately said, what day you want me to come? I said, but let me see what I got to do. My wife never asked the question what she got to do. She had nothing to do. Suddenly her calendar went blank. And there was only one thing to do, to go to her child, who was up there with her husband. She didn't need her mother. There are all kind of nurses in the hospital, all kind of doctors in the hospital, all kind of workers in the hospital. But immediately she was going to her daughter. I, the father, well, let me see what day I could get up there. It was a question of time and convenience. Yeah, I know it. And after I sat back and I said to myself, gee, it's time and convenience. And yet I know I have made these changes and I've accepted her as my goddess, but it hasn't been long and I don't get support from the brothers. I didn't get support from my father. I didn't get support from anybody for this to lock into me deep enough. But most of all, physically, biologically, it didn't lock. It is not in my clock, but her clock locked in. It was locked in the day her mother conceived her, and her sexual status, it was conceived. It was just slowly developed more and more until she gave birth, got pregnant, gave birth, then it was able to practice. Psychologically, she's different. She's a different person psychologically. She's prepared, she's born into this psychological realm. I didn't. And we can't give recognition, unfortunately, for our reality. We are poor, we're sad indeed. And then we look at the elephant, we look at the lion, we look at the dog, and says, we are above them. I wonder when we became above them. How different do we behave that is above them? And who set us up over them? And we got a nice story. God put us in charge of the animals and everything. You're a damn liar. And I know you're going to defend the lie because it's comfortable. But let us stop and try to examine the truth. The truth couldn't be beautiful. And it will probably make us better with each other, to get along with each other, to be more loving with each other, to recognize our limitation, that one is not over the other. Yet at the same time, if we got into an airplane and there are 2 men in the cockpit German commercial plane, one is put there to be in charge of the flight. If the other one say, I got as much flying ability as you, I'm in charge like you not gonna make it, or you're gonna die. Because the two of them can't make up their mind on where they're going, because each of them want to be in control of the plane. We could make accommodation to live with each other, to recognize the one who's better able to do a certain thing. I know that my wife used to say at the end of the month, take care of the bill, do this. One month I willfully did not take care of the bill. I stood in Egypt and she was here. And she called me in Egypt and said, the bill is to be paid. I said, don't pay it. Wait till I come. I'm not coming. Don't pay it. When I came back, she said, you know, they came here and said, I said, and what did you do? I'll pay the bill. I said, you know now how to pay the bill? Yeah. I said, then you can pay the bill when I'm not here, right? You're not going to call me anymore. Yeah, but, I said, you learn to pay the bill. And women could pay bills. Like men, you could give birth to a child. You could give birth to a child. Then you could pay bills. I'm just trying to show you that our socialization has been to suit the governments, to suit those in charge of us. And they're in charge of us because they set up themselves in charge of us. And they're going to be in charge of us as long as we don't prepare our children with that concept of all that I've just discussed with you tonight. So, I say, God loves a goddess. Thank heaven for goddesses.
Sisters and brothers, Dr. Bennett kept it deliberately short because I'm sure he's willing to invite as many questions as possible. So what I'd ask you to do is kindly line up on this side for your questions. No? Okay, whilst you don't have to be afraid of Dr. Ben, he won't harm you. Whilst you're making up your mind, Dr. Ben, would you kindly discuss about how the Egyptians conceptually developed this whole idea of the woman, goddess, male-female god, goddess concept in the Egyptians?
I think that we need to mention before the Egyptians, you see, one of the major errors we've made, and we've made it because when other people came in, and we didn't, at least I didn't know, that the proliferation would be where everybody would call themselves an Egyptologist after the first trip, and some before a first trip, after no trip. And reading one book, and they would write another book, and I thought they would come and know what it's all about. Then we too did not have the opportunity to develop this, and we would act like the European come in, take over, and tell the world what's going on. Thus, it became everybody looked to Egypt for every answer. But Egypt was the last nation on the Nile. Egypt is at the end of the Nile, not the beginning. But the Egyptians themselves, like the papyrus of Hunefa said, we came from the beginning of the Nile, where God happy dwells. Huh? Beginning of Nile. And then he goes to describe it at the foothills of the mountain of the moon. Kilimanjaro is mountain of the moon, also Renzori in Uganda. All along the Nile, the indigenous people, the African people, spoke of these things before, thousands of years before there was an Egypt. And they developed various beliefs about them until they get down to the Nile. I mean, to the end of the Nile, Egypt. In Egypt, they wrote a number of works. And in those works, they give answers to the deities, male and female, god and goddesses. And gave each part, for example, in all aspects of morality, there is a goddess who is in charge, for instance, goddess Ma'at, which everybody uses all the time in this society as if they know that goddesses. And everything they say, Ma'at. And all Ma'at is in charge of justice. Nothing else. Nothing else. So that if Ma'at herself wanted to do something else, she had to go to another goddess or another god. And that's what I mean, is when we get carried away and we don't want anybody to tell us anything else, because we come in and establish our own value and we get in trouble. I really refer to Ma'at. I only refer to Ma'at when I'm dealing with certain things in justice, personally. So I may call upon Hathor, Het Heru. I may call an Aset, Isis, depending on the situation. Like I always tell people, when I die, I'm going to Aset. And they say, why? Not Ma'at. I say, I go to Aset. Ma'at isn't in charge of me. I said, my body, spiritually, is going to the womb, is going to the, I said, the twat, I said. And one sister the other day, don't correct me for the word twat. She said, it's dirty. I said, maybe your twat is dirty. But Aset's twat isn't dirty. And she said, well, men always say. I said, I don't care what men always say. I'm saying what is correct. And there's nothing wrong with that unless you know it's dirty. But she said, but men, I said, there's a correct word, twat. It means the female organ of a woman. And she said, but, I said, because a man said a thing is dirty and it's bad, don't mean I have to say, although I'm a man. If it is correct, then I'm going to say it. I don't care who don't like it as long as it's correct. She left, of course, with a question of mine. Right. Is it correct? Is it true? And because men condemn it, and she never, I think that young lady is now in a quandary because she can't deny that it's a proper word. A twat is what the woman was first called. And it's in the books, the twat. Because men stupidly condemn it, doesn't stop it from being the twat. There's so many, as a matter of fact, it was because men had aspersions about it. As men now stupidly have all kinds of aspersions. She may eventually get to feel more appreciative about her own body. Regardless, I said, because if you don't, and just depend upon what men say about your body in their fear, it's fear. It's fear that has us. Why is it that I can't go to the bathroom when my wife is in the bathroom? I go to the bed with my wife, I have sexual intercourse with my wife, but I can't go to the bathroom. And she goes and locks the door. Now, what is it about my wife? I don't know. She's afraid that I see her when she's menstruating. And the reason is, we have decided there's something bad. There's nothing bad. All I got to do is restrain myself from cohabitating with her at that period. Now, why can't I be in there? Because we have conditioned ourselves that something is wrong. Now, during that period, there's nothing wrong with me. Right? But am I not going through a cleansing period also? Yeah, I'm going through. But you see, we have identified that symbol with something bad because we are the gods. And we make the decisions. And they stand the decisions in spite. And so they got to do all kinds of things. Some society, they can't even be in the same room. Something wrong with them. And we have that all packed. And we make them accept it. Some of us say at that period of time they're sick. Some say they're going through the curse. Ah, yes. And we ask why we fight. So, it's going to be a big, long problem, but it's going to come. And I'm not looking for any god or goddess or anything from the air to justify it. Our human behavior is going to force the action on us. The reality of time is going to catch up with us when we're going to make changes, as we have made many changes before. You just think that, do you see the women using the micro minis? And they gone past the micro minis. Once you used to tell a woman, your slip is showing, and scared, you had to go tell another woman to tell that woman her slip is showing. Now her drawers is showing. And you could go up and tell her, look, your drawers showing. Huh? Do you realize that when Lindsay was mayor of New York, women was going to jail for wearing hot pants? You forgot it? Women were sent to Staten Island as punishment by the judge for wearing hot pants. But men were wearing it, hot pants, and never went to jail. Now look at the women, the same woman out there. Then we correct something, and we said people should wear whatever they want. So men and women are wearing hot pants. More than that, men and women having the same man. Now we got to make an adjustment like that. So you see, it sounds funny, but when we consider that the many things that we do contrary to human habit and consider it's okay, we need some adjustments because we don't show any attention to ourselves. We're always watching the neighbor, what the neighbor is doing wrong, but we don't watch each other. We don't say to our companion, let's check over ourselves, what we're doing, and say, let's check down the list and see the things that we're doing wrong.
Yes, sir. Dr. Vin, are you saying, like, as far as male and female are concerned, that you have the gods and you have goddesses, but the goddesses are a higher deity than the god?
I didn't say anything like that.
I'm just trying to be clear in my mind.
I didn't use the word higher yet.
Well,
They are the gods and they're the goddesses. And this task is the one of the goddess.
What you said, this task?
Childbirth is the task of the goddess.
Oh, okay.
Then we must, and the recognition of childbirth is to be given to the goddess.
But I got kind of confused about the deity.
But you got confused with who is higher than whom, and that's the big issue.
Yeah, I thought you was...
The issue between man and woman is who's to be in control. You got no problem about God and goddesses. Our problem is who's to control. Control. That's the problem.
I might have got a little confused because you were saying that men have a little problem in saying, like, praying to a goddess.
Yes. If I'm gonna pray to my child, or pray for my child, who am I to pray to? The man?
No, I'm just trying to be clear.
Yeah, I'm getting you clear. You see?
No, I'm saying, are we saying that on a singular basis, or is this plural?
On the singular basis, the woman is greater than the man when it comes to childbirth.
Oh, to childbirth.
That's what I'm talking about, childbirth.
Life.
Maybe I missed.
To life.
Well, that's the part that I thought that you were saying. Like she's saying here, she's saying life.
Life, it is life. The baby is born as life. She gives birth to life.
So why should man have a problem with the goddess?
No, I truly don't have a problem with goddess. And above all, I don't have a problem with God. You know, no. Well, definitely, I don't have a problem with God above all. I have no problem with that. But I don't have a problem with goddesses either. Above all?
In the place.
I said either. Okay? But I thought we were more or less addressing a singular term than a plural.
Now,
And it was termed as a higher deity than the other.
in life,
This is what-
in life, it is the higher. In life, she is the higher. Now, since you're bringing it out, in life, in given life, she is the highest deity.
I thought that's what you were saying.
No, I didn't say it then. I'm saying it now.
Well, I think
In life.
I
In life.
what you were saying.
In
And I
life.
think that we all got that
No,
thought.
you
I
got
think a lot
that.
of us had it. Did you get that? Well, it seems
But you can't say what I didn't say. If you ask me what I said, like now I would clear it up. And now I'm going to add highest. She's the highest deity in given life.
okay, if all life, that's male and female, because
She gives birth to all.
I'm just saying you have male and female characteristics in everything in life.
And
Okay.
And?
you're saying that the female characteristic
Give
has a
birth.
Wait a minute now. I'm clear that she gives birth. I don't have any problem with that.
Okay?
Okay. As a female characteristic in a deity, and that female characteristic deity is higher than a male characteristic deity
In given life.
in a human,
Don't change it in given life.
in giving life.
All right, now, that's it.
Oh, in giving life, I wouldn't agree with that. Because we can have no babies. You know? We can have no babies, you know?
That's all I say all night long. That's all I dealt with all night long.
I told him exactly what I want to
Say
say.
what was really bothering you.
That's it.
Well, it was he clarified, he said, in giving life.
But right, the problem is, truly in man, is that it's the
Try to get rid of the
woman.
microphone. Listen, come on. We don't share this deal.
Here, where there is a problem, even though we're here and we're talking about the life essence, where the woman is goddess, and where men in general, men as saying the mother with her son, her daughter. And if it starts with the husband and the wife, and the husband can look to his wife as he would to his mother and know that she is a goddess, for giving her birth, for giving him life, then he should too look to his wife as he would to his children to one day become gods and goddesses. So therefore, I'm saying also where we're coming into the power struggle, which I'm hearing here, because I think he's got something underneath that, saying I have a little problem hearing this, saying that the woman, I'm just saying, this is what I'm picking up, and I could be wrong,
I'm like Dr. Ben, I think you're adding something to it.
Now, as you said, did he pick that up? Well, this is what I was picking up here listening. And not saying that it's true here in this case, but maybe some people are thinking that beneath it all, when you're saying giving acknowledgement to the woman as goddess, that's a very strong word, very powerful. And to look at my mother, my grandmother, and all the other mothers before us, they are truly goddesses, because without them, there would be no life. And the male in our society today here in America has changed that whole concept. That's why we have a problem dealing with now, and I'm not saying you personally, hearing the word goddesses, lifting the female up, very high above the male, and then it's saying, okay, me as a man, where am I? Where do I fit? You're still there.
You're still there, brother.
You're just uplifting that woman above you to say, this is life. She represents life. She's the sun goddess. She gives life on the earth, the planet.
Now I see
Good job. No answer.
what you're saying is that the female light is light. And the sun is light.
No, we don't want it. Brother Lee, we don't doubt.
Because your side of the deal, you said give it back?
Because he has more knowledge than I. I'm speaking from a personal experience, and I'm speaking here.
I'm giving my humble opinion. This is my
Right,
humble opinion.
and I'm sharing with you.
Excuse me.
I was just saying I was sharing here with him. I'm not trying to take anything away from Dr. Ben, or I am adding to. And it's not just an understanding for yourself or for all of us here in the room, because your opinion is very important, and your understanding of what was said here is very important. That all of us walk out of here with a clear understanding as what was the message here. And sometimes we're going to hear things, and with all of our different beliefs as a child being raised and reared here in America, in this state, a lot of us are very confused, and that's why I said your mother. If you look at your mother as a goddess, okay, your grandmother, and every other mother before them, it's not saying that you need a man. Of course you need a man to fertilize the egg, to make it a child. But that man,
Artificial assimilation.
well, we're not, that's another
But you can't,
person. They're not God.
You can't do that without sperm.
That's not God. Well, see, that's it again. If we all realize the creation of life, and we all realize that it does take two, in this case, it's just saying, I'm saying personally, in our society, and here in this society that we live in, and other societies where the white man has come in, he has taken away those things which were rituals to us, and our family and our cultures, and the woman who was once cast very high in light has now become a shadow beneath the man's foot.
Talk about that.
And when the woman is trying to be lifted up here, as we're hearing today, in the word, again, I say goddess is a very strong word, is not to make men, gods, feel left out. It's to say, we first have to uplift our women and recognize them as such, as goddesses, in order for us to also be pulled up. Because we do work as a team, but also stating, I don't know and if anybody has a problem, especially our children, if we can't walk out of here with an understanding that when we go home tonight and tomorrow and other days to come, that slowly, as Dr. Ben has stated, we have to slowly transform ourselves from things we've been taught. And it's hard. It's hard breaking a caste that you've been born into. And it's all the castes are the same. We all fit the same caste. So here we're trying to break out of something that's not ours. It was shaped for us.
Right.
And we were poured into it.
I agree. Because we weren't born.
I agree what she's saying. Because we as people, we weren't born here in a void. Everything that we got as people, we got from the suggestions of this Caucasian race. We didn't get it from anywhere else. If we got it from our parents got it as a reflection from this Caucasian race. So I agree with you, 100%. I was just had a little difficulty in the part of saying, right, exactly, in saying, was this a singular or plural term? Because I heard it singular, and I didn't hear the other part, plural, as God and goddesses. And then he clarified a little bit more, and I might be wrong again. I'm going to ask him again. because he said something, I think, about she's still a deity higher than men.
If you recall,
Higher.
As
a goddess higher.
If you recall, I explained to you equally the movement of the sperm from the scrotum. I explained it.
I know.
Okay. Then, if you heard that, I said, in childbirth, she is the greatest of the deity. In childbirth, I specify in this case where and why she was the greatest in childbirth. And I said, do you know of any male who can give birth to a child? Then if no man can do it and only a woman can do it, she is the greatest.
And be giving birth to a child.
But what am I talking about?
And giving birth to a child.
What did I say?
I agree.
You somebody's like, you can't.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
You were speaking about a point where the woman psychologically kicks in. There was a point where you said that she gets to a point where she's ready, she's psychologically ready, it kicks in, it's there. And my question is...
I don't understand what you mean. Kicks in. You got to explain that a little more.
Okay. I think you were talking about the point where you went to visit someone in the hospital.
When his wife went to Chicago and it just kicked in when she said, when you want me now.
Right, it's like it was there, and for you said it was convenience and time.
Yes.
My question is, what is it in men that can, or what can contribute or enhance men to get to the point where we kick in?
You can't. It's unique. It's unique to your biological reality. A woman that doesn't have to be trained to have this. It's part of the biological makeup. And you can't change your biology to suit by training it. It's there. Oh, it's not there.
Thank you.
Dr. Ben, do you have a question?
I give much thanks, Dr. Ben, for your presentation this evening because we are in a serious transition and this is one of the most important things. What I would like for you to do is to possibly, because I think what you're saying is there is a balance, that the woman is the highest in terms of life. So the men seem to still be trying to find out what it is that they're about, that puts them high. Could you give some examples of some of the things that the man, as the God, puts him at a higher position in his time that allows the balance as God and Goddess?
It's very easy if he's thinking, while she's giving birth, the family's there, the little children. She can't give birth and take care of the family at the same time. Earn the food, different things like that. It needs somebody. And he's there with her. Now his role is, his paramountcy is there. She can't do what he's doing then. He is the highest at that time to provide support for her, to provide protection for the life, to survive her maintenance. Complementary. She is highest here, he is highest there. Together, they make a couple of one.
All right.
Questions? Dr. Ben, a couple of weeks ago you assured me that I was conceived by an immaculate conception.
I was also.
But you didn't know it to finish. No, but seriously, you assured me that, that I was conceived by an immaculate conception, and I came here as a result of a virgin birth. Now, I think that part of the problem living in a male-dominant society, where you have European supremacy, is this whole concept of God being female. How can you address the question, or how can you shed some light on the fact that will start to help us to accept that this male God concept is not all there is, and long before there was a female?
What we forget is that in the language process, that there are many languages where there is no exact term for a female as against a female, a male and a female. In certain languages, there are genders, male gender, female gender. As a matter of fact, that was the hardest thing in Arabic to get in my mind, that between knife and fox, there is genders. In other languages, there's no such gender between a fork and a spoon. And some languages make the difference between a male and a female with the fork and a spoon. What is dominant here is our culture, how we are culturalized. And our culture is based upon the experience that we've had in our society. And it depends where the society is and what's around us, impacting on us. For example, I said to you in the case of the Immaculate Conception, what is an Immaculate Conception? You see, we immediately deal with the sexual experience, male and female, and come back in. The man is afraid of any woman who has had sexual intercourse before him with another man. Somehow he believes that the first man with a woman is the man. He forgot the Godfather. There's a term that we have in this society says the Godfather, G-O-D, father. The Godfather had sex first with the wife and told the husband she is okay. We forgot that marriage long ago was always between the youth, young people. First, because they almost guarantee children. Second, because they both had no experience and didn't know what to do. And the Godfather was a relationship to the marriage that made sure that both understood by showing them. So the Godfather used the woman first before the husband. You say, well, what? Because the man is also going to become a Godfather. And he's going to use the woman before next man. You understand? But immediately for the society, it would be difficult for a man to understand the Godfather having the woman biologically first. Not realizing that that man, to become a Godfather, got to be married. And then he will also do it to the woman first. So the Godfather was always a cousin of the family, where the relationship remained. We're still family. Now, that sounds strange to us because we have passed that. Not better, not worse, but we passed that stage. And now the Godfather generally is not even a remote cousin. Some guy that I met, we became friendly, and he's the Godfather. You see? Some society, we forget that some society, for instance, in some society, and my particular family, when the father is dead, the uncle becomes the father. And is never referred as an uncle. He's the father. Some society, when the father dies, the oldest brother has the right to be married to the wife. all kind of different arrangement that would sound funny to us, but our arrangements sound funny to them. And we have to recognize these other things. For instance, I live in Egypt, and in Egypt, your first cousin is the most preferred marriage. Everybody trying to get married to a first cousin. It's the strongest marriage. Why? Let's say my mother and your brother and your father are brothers and sisters. When I marry your daughter's children and you marry my father's children, we marry. The chances of us breaking up is very rare. When I do your daughter some wrong, she calls her mother, who's my aunt, and her mother says to me, "Boy, what's wrong with you? You getting crazy, stupid? This is my aunt." "No, Tante, she mistake." And I call her father, my uncle. Do you see? The marriage is not going to break up because your aunt and uncle, her uncle telling her what to do, my aunt telling me what to do. How would we marry? Look, is it money you need? I got money. The family got money. Is it this you need? They got it. What are we breaking up about? You understand? That's why in let's say in Egypt, although you could, here is how I could divorce a woman in Egypt. I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. It's over. I go down to the court. That's all. With one witness, I said, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. And if the vow said, I give you 25,000 pounds or 10,000 pounds, or I give you the 10,000 immediately, we divorce. We divorce. We go down and register it to the office. We divorce, but we got to wait 90 days in case you're pregnant. We will see in 90 days if you're pregnant or not. And you can't touch nobody. That's it. But why it doesn't happen? Only 1%, I think it's 1% of a percentage. It's just that it doesn't. Why doesn't it happen? I mean, look how easy it is. Because, number one, my family gonna say to me, you divorced my niece. Why? That's your first cousin. Why you didn't call us? Why? But before we get there, you see, she's gonna call, or somebody's gonna call. It ain't gonna happen. Because the family's gonna take care of it. It is nothing could happen that the family can't take care of. They got money. They go, if they ain't got it, they're gonna call everybody to get it, to get the money. Do you understand? So it doesn't happen. It does. The Christians and the Muslims got different safeguards, but the Christians can't get divorced. There's no divorce. Christians can't divorce. So you marry a stock. You could get an annulment if something before the marriage, which you knew in the marriage would have stopped the marriage from happening. That's annulment. That's not. But I'm just saying to say the safeguard why it doesn't happen. And we will consider it strange. But when we look into it seriously, we'll see the strength in it. And that's what I'm all saying is, what I'm saying is strange to a lot of us because we've been socialized into accepting the woman's status as below the men. And you can't speak of anything in which the woman will be higher than the men. See, remember long ago you had 90% of the teachers were women, but most of them had male principals in the school. And it was when they make the first women principal, people said, what we happening now? The world went to an end. They told us there'll be days like this when the world went to an end. You see, it isn't the world wasn't going to an end. Our tradition of male superiority was being threatened. And we were no longer comfortable and they have many other traditions, will have to change and will fall by the wayside. So I'm saying, this one which did us the most damage, and with our family, and with the way we see children being brutalized as a result of the lack of this kind of understanding, it's best we change it now rather than suffer that much more.
All praise to you, Dr. Ben.
Thank you.
Now, you said Egypt is at the end of the Nile.
Yes.
Okay. The people who came along the Nile, who came from the mountain of the moon, the foothills of the mountain of the moon, their traditional way of living and their concepts, their God concepts, was it developed further by the Egyptians? Was it raised to a higher level?
No, it was raised to different level.
Different level.
Not higher.
Not a higher
Because
level.
you can't change it, you can't make a God higher than the God. God is the ultimate. Or the goddess is the ultimate.
So right when we trying to emulate what the Egyptians did and trying to make that as the paramountcy and
Waste of time.
waste of time.
You can't be somebody else. You could take some moral guides. You could take some essence of what they did, and add it to what you're doing. But you can't be an Egyptian tomorrow, because you would have to have the same circumstances to be that he had. And I don't think most of us are going jumping on a donkey riding all around the place. Most of us aren't going to put on the clothes. Most of us aren't going to have remember, to be the Egyptian of the first dynasty or the 20th dynasty, you need the same roads, the same buildings, the same everything, and you don't have that, and you're not going to it. You do it, you still have this where you live here. Now, what you could do is to draw some of the principles that he had and put it with yours, and then see if it fit. But you can't live his life or her life. You see me, they say, hey, this is normal for me to act myself out. And then they will say, her first. That's common behavior that I adopted.
Dr. Ben, I just read this week in Archaeology magazine that the Europeans have found a 3.5 million year old humanoid in West Africa now, and they're saying that the East Coast is no longer the cradle of civilization. Can you expound on that?
I didn't think they're going to find out all kind of humanoids all over the world. And I wouldn't be surprised if one in China, New York City, Paris. See, I am not one of those that caught up with the one cradle theory or the two cradle theory or so forth, and I really don't care where they find people, because I realized that one time people were just people. And I am not one that believed that man didn't move around and find himself from place to place, and man moved in the little boats afloat, the little boats that more than float with a sail, and who knows where he went. So I'm not surprised if they did. I was surprised to find one in New Jersey, this specific place we had in the morning. See, what we have to do is free ourselves of the restriction, free ourselves from thinking, and to realize that the fact that racism exists in the world today does not mean racism control what was yesterday. The fact, you see, I always realize this, and it's hurt us a lot when we travel. I said once, I will never marry a white woman. A man said, jump up in the same lecture and start cursing the Greeks. I said, which Greeks are you cursing? He said, all Greeks. I said, including them 10,000 years BC. He said, yeah. I said, but they didn't have discrimination. They had to have it. The white in it? I said, brother, did people being white make they automatically had to discriminate? Yeah. I said, I can't talk about it because we have the ground. You see, we believe that at all times the world was divided black, white, brown, yellow. Nonsense. Discrimination and what we're talking about, or put a person in chain and all that kind of thing, that's recent, very recent. 500 years at the most. And I'll add, let's make it 1,000 years. But beyond that, it doesn't exist. Because when you tell people that Rome had black emperors, Septimus Severus, Caracalla, Honorius, those are the three. From Africa, when you tell them the Roman Catholic Church had 3 African popes, you tell them Germany had the patron saint of Jarvis Maurice of Aragon was a Nigerian, and so on and so on. That's done. England had a black king, George the Third rather, who fought against George Washington. His mother was Martha, and his wife was also a black woman. They're stunned. They're stunned because they're not. See, we will pick up hearsay history, but we don't do any research. And we read one book and say, I got the history. One book. And this is the problem. If we understand, I would not marry a white woman under these conditions in the world today. I wouldn't marry a white woman. Do I feel that white women are inferior physical to me? No. Socio-politically, I'd be a damn fool to marry a white woman. And that's the reason I'm talking, not that she's inferior or superior. You must understand the basis in which you say you're going to do a thing or not do it. If in the morning discrimination leave the world, there's no problem to marry a white or green or pink or blue woman if they were. Understand clearly what we're saying before we go ahead and do it. And therefore, when you talk about 1000 BC, I know I can't think about discrimination in the sense that we'll be speaking it today, because nobody lived that way during that period of time.
Yes. Question? 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 Okay, Dr. Ben, let me see if I can fill in another question. Now that you said that, whenever we see a picture of an Egyptian, we always see Nefertiti and not Nefertari. You don't see Tari. Does that fit into what you just said with regards to the racism?
That's why the ancient Egyptians were often married to Asian up until the 1000 BC. And why not before were they married to Europeans? There was no European in the world. The first time we had to hear about Europeans would be when Greece came into being. And that would be about 1000 BC. The first time we had to read about it is when Homer wrote the first European book, two books, the Odyssey and the Iliad. So we don't know of Europeans before that period of time. But since they became Europeans, the Greeks, the Egyptians and other Europeans married them. They had contact, and the contact developed to the point that once Greece took over and Rome took over Egypt, there was no doubt when you look at the pictures and so forth that there was that integration that took place. And I hate the word integration because it sounds as if one thing could deal with the next. Human beings going to bed with each other isn't integration, that's sex. Whereas today, until the situation come back, amicable as it was in those days, I would be the last to support it. Or I have to understand that if in my living it changed back, I would say, well, now it changed back, I support it. And these things have to be taken into consideration when we make our evaluations and when we act, and otherwise we'll be being incorrect in our position. I mean, I need to make these things clear so there be no doubt, no misunderstanding of the things I'm saying, because the other day I'm supposed to have a family in Paris. A blonde family with some little spotted children. And I heard the news, and I was at the University of Georgia speaking, and I knew a young lady was going to challenge me with it, so I got up and I said, now before I go into speaking and there be any problem, let's discuss my wife in Paris. And I said, my wife in Paris is darker than anybody in this room. And they were stuck. And they know what I'm talking about. I said, the rumor going around that I marry a white woman in Paris. I said, well, if I marry a white woman, boy, I ain't gonna keep her in Paris. I bring her here with me. I need her. Well, that got rid of that rumor. So that's why I said, I know that I would not, in my own mind, be rational to marry a white woman because I wouldn't be able to carry her anywhere. Being who I am, I would have to be able to defend her, and not defend my action, because when I do it, it's already what I want to do. So that's why I tell my children all the time, do not marry a woman you cannot defend. Or do not marry a woman, I won't marry a black woman whose reputation doesn't suit me. You know, like I got a car, my daughter in Chicago, and her husband both got ill more or less at the same time, and they had, I gotta say, they had two Volvos. I can't afford one. And they couldn't sell one of the Volvos that they now move in Chicago, from outside of Chicago. And they wanted to get around. They couldn't get the money for it, and they called me up and told me, I'm sending you a Volvo. They say a car. And then I asked questions about this car. Is it broken down? What happened to it? And she said, no, Daddy, this car is in perfect condition. I won't tell you all it's got in it. So I said, okay, I'll take the car. So she said, about 7 days. So I came to Jersey to pick up the car where they said I should go. And I saw the car and I said, what am I going to do with this car? And my wife already told me, bring the car. And I got in the car. It was warm and everything was good. And I'm looking around and sunroof and all kind of things, stereo and everything. Well, I carried the car. I'm now driving the car. The Granada, I had a car, remember my Granada? This would have been the 15th year. I gave away the car to make sure that I could see it. I gave it to Dr. Lewis. And I'm seeing Dr. Lewis almost every morning with the Granada. And certain days I pat the Granada. But when I heard this one, they bought it for $29,000. I sit down in the car, I don't feel good in it. I mean, it's too good for me. But I can't give away the car because it's given to me by my daughter and my son-in-law. But I'm just trying to show you what customs could do for you. I would never have gone up there. My other daughter had given me a car once, the Continental, Lincoln Continental. I sold it. I just couldn't adjust to it. It wasn't me. I was embarrassed all the time I jumped in that Continental. I haven't developed embarrassment yet. I am much older. And I can't stand a rough car. So this is quite a Well, Sister Kepper said to keep it. I'm learning to deal with it, but I don't know how my daughter has settled out there with all this luxury. I mean, it's way beyond the way I think a ride to the airport should feel, because that's as far as I'm going with it. But I understand that changes come hard. We get accustomed to things, and it becomes comfortable to us mentally and physically and otherwise. But then we become painful to others. And with the way our women are suffering, and the way our children and the welfare and different things like that, we got to accept changes. We got to make changes. And that's what my lecture today is dealing with. Not the handful who benefits from whatever's going on, but the vast majority of us who suffer as a result of what's going on. It has to change. And all my lectures do is introducing the brothers and letting the sisters know that we are trying to make some changes. It's going to be difficult because just the language, like a discipline. If you're in, let's say you're a physician and you walk in here as a physician, you could do anything you want that a doctor can do to a patient. But you're not going to get a dentist to cut your hand, but they're a physician. You're not going to get an ophthalmologist to fix a cancer in your stomach. You're going to get him to work on your eye. It's the age of specialization. It doesn't mean that in emergency that either of them can't try, because they have had some experience in all parts of the body. And that's what we need to recognize is the time in which we live and the realities of what we have to do. If we could recognize those differences within us and that we use, we could spend a much better day without $1 in our pocket.
Dr. Ben, Dr. Ben, just based on what you just said, it just brings me to a particular question that I had an earlier discussion with a friend. But where was the origin of the white man? Where did he come from? Someone is claiming he comes out of Africa.
He comes out the same place. He comes out of the same place people come from.
Okay.
I mean, I can't tell you where anybody comes from. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll be following what somebody else said.
Right.
Because I wasn't there when the first people came, if they came. They might have been, for me, they might have been people always. I don't know, and I don't see. I don't follow anthropology as in terms of the beginning of human beings. I don't follow theocracy as the beginning of human beings. I don't have any theory of how man get to the earth. All I know that man is on the earth. Since man is on the earth, how do I deal with him? That's the question. But how we come, I don't know. I can't give you an answer. As to red, black, green, white, or whatever man come here, I can't give you. I wasn't there.
No, you just made a statement about Europeans appearing with Greeks. And we know where Greek is located.
Mm-hmm.
So when
across from Egypt.
Right, across from Egypt. So when one would tell me that the European, the Caucasian, he's in Africa. Some people are saying that. He's in Africa. Who has mutated? Do you believe in that concept?
No, why haven't the African mutated from the European? We don't know. When we're talking about first people and whatnot, how do we know that we were first people? How come we weren't always here? Nobody knows. You tell me that man came about 25 million years ago. Who was there 25 million years ago keeping a record? When you tell me about Adam and Eve, who been there and kept a record? These are theories, and theories are not necessarily truth or falsehood. It's theory. We can't prove it one way or the other. And those things I don't deal with to judge people. I would judge you and your behavior. The reason I almost said pissed off. With a European is his behavior. His behavior now. His behavior as time man knows it. That's why I'm mad with him. His behavior is antisocial to all men. And I'm mad with him so I can't marry his daughter because the behavior. Now, if his daughter and him change the behavior upside down, then I'll deal with him. Not because how was the first when he came? I don't know about it. I don't know nobody who knows that could tell me. And that's what we are doing. We're doing with his behavior and then saying that from the first day he came out, and we don't know the first day he came out. We know the first day we came out. And that's why I make these differences, and I try to, when I'm speaking, to start from a frame of reference that I can validate, not before. And that's why I challenge the way that Muhammad said that the white man came by error when the black man was trying to make man, a black man by the name of what? Yaqub. And he made the formula wrong and a white man came. Now, I'd be a fool to go preaching that to somebody. I wouldn't tell a donkey that story in fear that he'd kick me.
Dr. Ben, in one of your major works, African Origin of Major Western Religions, you gave the history of how these religions evolved. Now, the one thing that's common throughout all those religions is the male god. And I can't speak for anyone, but I think that there's still some questions of the superiority of this male god in some of our minds because of what we've endured for so long. And now you are telling us about the female or the feminine entity. What are some of the aids you can suggest for us to start detoxifying ourselves of this male god dominance?
I think that in Judaism, I don't think, no. In Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, at least I know these three, in which they have the dominant God figure.
Those of us in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam should start now, first of all, reading it. I would say 90% of all people in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam do not know even the religion. They don't know the religion, but they should develop. They got to study their religion and know what it's already preaching. All of these religions preaches the dominancy of the male religion and give a masculine. They all three subscribe to the Adam and Eve story. All the three of these religions, and some that comes from them. Look at the starting. And God created, the first thing is, God made a man and a woman. Man and a woman. And send them out to multiply. That's not too bad, because he made both of them. Genesis 2, however, God have a second thought. He created a man and made a woman. Two different things altogether. One has deification, created, and the other doesn't, he just made. And he sent them out to multiply. Have sex. No marriage. The first one, they went to have sex and no marriage. The second case, it goes on to say, and the man knew his wife. Now, when they get married, how? Who was there? It couldn't be nobody there. Adam and Eve had nobody with them. God had to perform the marriage. He had to be the witness. Huh? You know, if I question that and ask myself the question, it's okay. Nobody else is asked. But I ask anybody else, they're going to be questioning me. Why are you questioning? Because it's a damn stupid story. And you ask me to be stupid to accept it. And I have a right to question it because it doesn't make sense. How many people are going to feel comfortably enough to even discuss it? That fear starts as soon as you question. You are asked to base your life on this, and you can't question it. How must I base my life on something I can't question or examine? And this is a major problem. These things that were said in any Bible or religious work, we can't question, because what? God will punish you. And that's the big issue. The issue is our fear of God punishing us.
Would you punish him?
I punish you with ease. And God. Because if God loved people as it says, but then I got to remember, he couldn't have loved Lot's wife and turned her into a bag of salt. If we stop and look at, say, description of God and behavior, and then, did you read what God punished people who love gold, right? Right? But heaven is paved with gold. The Bible said, precious stones, gold, beryllium, diamond, that's how heaven is. You're talking about Africa. And you see, if you bring this to people and show them how heaven is paved,
Dr. Ben, we at African Echo have promised ourselves that after you come back from your trip this year from Egypt, and when you come back to African Echoes, we're going to have the red carpet laid out for you, and we're going to honor you beginning this year, 1996, and Dr. Clark, Professor Clark, by rolling out the red carpet, as we should have done long ago. We're going to do that. I have a situation where it is incumbent upon me to find ways and means to establish some kind of program where we can educate our children to respect each other. And I see that the one thing that can rightfully do this, or righteously do this, is the next time you are in Egypt, you take your microscope.
That will be next Sunday.
Yes.
I'm going to Egypt next Sunday.
Pull out your microscope and fine-tune the writing on the walls and come back to us with documentation of, and the word was spoken and things came into being, and she said thus and thus and thus and so. We would be so grateful.
I know where I should find it. Would be in, I don't know if it's there, but I should find words to the effect should be at Abydos, the Holy Land, or I should find it. There's a three possibility. I don't know if it's there. I think it may be there, thing to that effect. At Aswan, in the temple of Aset, or as I said, Abydos, in the temple of Setaiwan, and the last place where I should find it is at Dendera, the temple of Het-Heru, that is Hathor. If I don't find it those three places, I don't think I'll find it any place else. I will promise you to look I have an idea it will be in Aswan, at the temple of Ajuka Island, which is called Philae Island. I know where you can find the priest taking the baby out of the woman, and that's at the door, going to the backyard, to the side yard. And I think it's there, because that's that extreme position in which that is happening right from the Holy of Holies. If I don't find it in those three places, I don't know where it exists. See, that's what I'm saying. I can't tell any piece of literature where anything is said in that manner. I know things that you can see and understand in the presentation, the artwork, where you can see that and make the assumption. But that would be the closest. I know you're quoting from the Bible, the Western Bible, Judaism, Christianity, where the statement God says. But I can show you where the God, there are scenes of heaven where Tiacha speak of, I spoke my words and everything happened, or the word was spoken and everything happened. That I can show you, possibly in the little thing that I'm doing, my manuscript. Yeah, because I got a manuscript with me. I can show you that, where the gods are saying it. This particular God is saying it. And 3 different gods, all the gods, when they came, said, I spoke, and therefore I was. I can't recall where it's written. Oh, I'm supposed to announce that my educational, Nile Valley educational tours would be 15 days, July the 7th to 21st, August the 4th to the 18th, August the 18th to September the 1st. And the tour, 15 days, is $2,530. That include everything. If you come on the trip and you don't have a penny, you should be able to go every place and enjoy everything without a penny in your pocket. It's never added amount. Oh yes, I remember. We don't have, I was unable to come today with many of these, so we would have them, but it is GG Travel, capital G-I, capital G-I, GG, Travel. And GG, by the way, stands for Gloria Goodwin, is the proprietor, African woman. 799 Nostrand Avenue, N-O-S-T-R-A-N-D, Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11225. That's the zone, 11225. Telephone number, 718, that's area code, 778 8500, 8520, 8500. That's how you can make contact with the travel agent. Since I can't have some of these, there they are back there. If your husband and wife or girlfriend and boyfriend, take one, because I know you got the other person have contact with it. We're going to try to get some of these to that Brother Imuni, so that he can bring over. Oh, you tell them. I don't. You tell them. You can get it.
Okay, go ahead. Next question. Next question.
On the concept of God, 1996, there's a Bible coming out. They say a politically correct Bible, where they'll say he, she, so he. And in the Ga tribe back in Ghana, we refer to God as an animal, meaning he, she, God. And this was thousands of years ago. And now, in 1996, the white man wants to come out of the Bible saying he, she, so I really wonder what he taught us.
I don't see any problem with it, but with the explanation that, for instance, in Egypt there is a goddess called Bes, in which they show around the neck there's two penis hanging down, and then there's a vagina between the legs, and it's considered a goddess. Hermaphrodite. So it's a he and a she all in one. But the people along the Nile, for every god, there is a goddess shown and mentioned. So the concept of the goddess was always there. Along the Nile in Egypt, in Sudan, I'm using the Western term, and Ethiopia, and of course there were other nations that came up and fell in the same area too.
Okay. On the question of men accepting women to be who women are, I really don't see why we waste much time trying to suppress women. Because you try to suppress what you are afraid of. You know, and if men are not afraid of women, why don't we leave them alone and be, so that they are free? You know, I wonder why.
Fear.
Okay. So there's something higher, more powerful in women. Because if you go to what you call juju or voodoo in Africa, there are certain things that when you do, they'll tell you, don't go near a woman who is menstruating. It's going to destroy you.
Well, that's the fool.
I don't know why, but then.
It's fear. Fear of, because man can't do it. He's afraid of it because he can't do it. He's jealous of it because he can't do it.
Yeah, but you see, woman, we have seasons and everything. We have rainy season, dry season. Everything in the world is in a cycle. A woman with a menstruation, 28-day menstruation period, is in a cycle too. So a woman is more in tune with nature than a man.
But then men got cycle. It's just that it's not seen.
What is cycle?
Do you think that men just could deal with women to get pregnant? How come you don't do it all the time?
I think I can do it all the time as a man.
I tell you, women have menstrual cycle to save your honor. And mine. Because the menstrual cycle just give me a chance to rest. Because if it wasn't there, I'd be dead.
Okay, Dr. Ben. Okay, I will ask you a two-part question and I'll break. The story of Osiris and Isis, is it a myth or a reality?
Myth.
It's a myth, okay.
You see, when you're talking about deities of the past, you're talking about myths.
Okay.
Because you could read it. Osiris died, bring himself back, and get killed again. First time he was killed by hanging. His brother said Typhon hated him and hang him. And second time, when his wife went out and bring him back and so forth, and they bring the body back, he lived, his brother see him again. Then went and cut him up into 14 pieces. He threw the pieces all over the world, and one piece, it can't be all over the world, because America was here. The land at least was here. They didn't create new land since that time. All right. Then they cut him up, and one of the pieces they threw in the Nile River, and it was eaten by the Nile catfish. How did they know it was eaten by the Nile catfish? All right, now. you know.
What was eaten by?
The penis was eaten by, they said so. So Nubians don't eat catfish. And probably that's why the reason I don't eat it either. So it's fear. Most of the things we believe is because of fear. And we're afraid of the woman. I'm talking about look what happened to me. See, when I talk about a thing, I talk about what I have experienced. I try to be as truthful as possible by experience. I remember when my first child was born. I was in the Caribbean, in St. Croix at the time. And I lay in the bed. I lay in the bed there. And she was there, I was lying beside her. And she was paying all the attention to the child. Now, I know I couldn't bother her physically. My mother had already told me the story. My mother was a midwife. She was a midwife. And she was a midwife for my woman, my wife. And I had known, she gave me the whole story, what I can do and what I can't do. And I was going to not do what she told me and do what she told me because I won't go in against my mother's instruction, regardless of how I felt. But I felt this child should have been killed. Because everything that my wife used to do for me and the attention was given to this child. Now why this little bastard should be there, I don't know. And I get to hate this child more and more as the time came, especially when it started to get close to the 3rd week. That was attack week. And I said, should we train the child about staying in the bed? Now how are you going to train a 4-week child to stay in a bed? The child can't do nothing but stay in the bed. But I'm just trying to show you the jealousy that fathers have. And it could be carried overboard if we don't catch ourselves and understand. But there is the jealousy that that child takes, and with some men it never goes. And some people mistreat their children because of this jealousy that developed. And I know I went through it. I had to bring myself back to norm, and then took upon myself my woman again. So I'm saying to you, I always wish that, and most of my sons, I make sure that they go down to the labor room, since they don't have the privilege of having a child at home, to see the child born. Most of my children demand when they go, they tell them in the hospital ward, you can't be, they say, I can't be in there. I'm the father of the child, and you can't be in there. And they go in. And then the doctors generally say, okay, as long as nothing is happening. They see the child born. And it has not failed. Every one of my children who saw their child born has been a different person from that day. And I got one son here right now. He divorced his wife, and the reason they divorced, the girl was a perfect girl. She was, but she liked to fight. And other than that, she's perfect. You can't have everything in a woman. It's gonna be something, you know, none of us perfect. But I said she was perfect as a person could be. You see, I'm perfect as a person could be. I got something wrong with me. And my wife is perfect as a person could be. But it is not the fighting alone that had, and I remember, I'm picking up for him because he's my son, but he got bad ways too. But wanted the fact that she will pick up a knife, and that she threatened him twice with a knife, and then he said eventually either she hurt me or I hurt her, and they divorced. She's remarried and now have a little baby. And I'm just saying all these different things to say what it's all about. Now you feel very well adjusted with this current wife. She just had a little child. But tomorrow, something may happen that she hasn't shown, he hasn't shown. What we got to do is to try to be at their side whenever they want consultation, they want information, or something so that it doesn't break down, it doesn't get out of hand. I feel I could do that. I've been 45 years with my wife. But it may, tomorrow something may came up that had never come. I don't know how I'm going to handle it. I give my wife the privilege of saving the marriage by certain behavior things that I did down through the marriage. So who has saved my marriage? My wife has saved it more than I have saved it. Some of my behavior would have been justifiable grounds for divorce. There were times I feel that some behavior, but way less her than me. But unless you're willing to see yourself in error as well as the greatness that you do, you're not going to make it. You're not going to, because you're not realizing when you faltered. And there were many times I faltered in my marriage that could have ended in a divorce. But she was stronger than me in the marriage. Too many of us are ready to say, as men, I was the weaker one, I made the mistake. Because we don't feel, men no more, to say the woman was the greater in this. It takes away from our penis. Our penis think instead of our mind. And it's hard. I spoke to this particular son the other day. We were speaking and he said, man, he was about 18 years old the last time that I had to deal with him physically. I had told him to stay upstairs till I come back from downstairs. And when I come in the lobby, he's downstairs. So I said, what are you doing down here? He said, well, I had to give my girlfriend. I said, what? I told you to stay upstairs. So I grabbed him. And I held him up like this. I wasn't going to hit him down there, I won't hit him upstairs. But then I didn't hit him upstairs because something said, well, he's 18 now, don't hit him, talk to him. But I would have hit him. I felt I had the right to hit him as his father. I felt he had to listen to what I said. I was feeding him, clothing him, and doing everything. And I didn't mind beating the hell out of him. And would do it to any one of my grandchildren under my care. See, I feel I have a responsibility, and no judge in the world can take it away. But now, he came back to me the other day, and we were talking, and he says, you know, some things you told me, and it's come out to pass. And we talk. What I say all that to say, I got another son, my oldest son, who is an addict, and still an addict. Drug addict, that is. And Selvin is 50, is he in the 50s? 52? Yeah, or 52. And he got what most of you got. He got a master's degree in social work. He got a master's degree in drugs too. But he can't, you think that I will argue for him because he's my son and know that he hits women when he feel like it, and know I let him know if I'm there and he does it in front of me, he's dead. Because I'm not going to let him hit my daughter-in-law or any of my children like that. I know that he put his wife head through the window of her body, held her by her foot, and hang her over the 19th floor. See, I know that. Now, can I don't hardly speak to him. I speak to him when I got to. But we aren't willing to do this. And do I not tell him what a dirty dog he is? Do I say he's my son and therefore I can't tell him? No. I would tell another man. Why not him? And these are some of the difficulties that we have, is to socialize ourselves, even though we won't socialize that way, to deal with what has to be dealt with, to honesty to ourselves, to stop this thing from going further. And it was hard, you know, easiness about it. It's hard to sit down in the subway and hear a voice that sounds like your son's voice. And the more it comes closer and closer. And then the door opens, and there's your son right in front of you singing, playing blind. And he got to come, and he's going to pass you. Do you sit there and let him pass you? Or do you do what I did? I got up and grabbed him in his throat. I didn't want conscious of what I was doing it because I reacted. Grabbing his throat. The people sitting down come to grab me because they think I'm stealing from this man. They think I'm trying to get the man money. It's a good thing somebody in there know both of us and tell the people, and he ran through the door. But that's what I'm saying. We've got to make a sense of decency. It's like my wife is now in Chicago. Consciously, I wouldn't carry a woman up there if it was to give me $1 million. I don't want her to ever say, I brought a woman in her bed when she was out. So you don't allow a woman to come up there. These are things that, nothing unique about me is a development. I developed this the hard way by studying and by doing. Nothing unique about me. I had to think, I had to study, I had to learn these behavior patterns and behave. So it's nothing that unique that nobody else can do. But the first thing I have to do is recognize my weakness in all this.
Who is the Coptic, and when did the Coptic Church come into existence?
Well, the Coptic is really the first organized church in Egypt. The Coptics come from the first two people that left the Jewish church, the Jewish synagogue, and started what is called the new religion, Pantheist and Boethius. What they started was eventually culminated in what is called the Coptic Church. It was after they died, of course. They started the movement continued, and out of it came the Coptic Church. It's the first organized Christian church in the world, the Copts. Started in Egypt. They still exist. Now the center of the Coptic movement is a place called Coptos. C-O-P-T-O-S, Coptos. And they call themselves the Coptics or the Copts. They still exist, but it's mostly under the former Greeks and Romans that once ruled Egypt.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ben. See you next week. Please make sure you take some of the flyers and share them out. We'll see you next week for Dr. Clark.
Cheers. For the cheers.
Cheers.
Yo,
okay, so we need a couple of brothers.
I did it correct.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, no. Sisters and brothers, all the videos said 20, 25, 30. I ain't gonna get that nothing nowhere else. Come on over here, got $50 over here. You want the video? That's my wife. Can't call my brother. Your name again? What they filming? What they filming?
that a girl like me never dreamed of. It never was for me, no, not really. But there was not a guy who was special enough until you came and made me so happy. Like a child on Christmas Day. I was so anticipating.